Hello, I'm George Liston, CA. Welcome to Dialogue, a program that explores the world of ideas and issues in international affairs, history, and culture. Greece is home to an ancient civilization whose contributions to humanity are legion, and it's a modern nation confronting issues of the 21st century in its region and the world. The Greece of today has vital interests in the stability and progress of the Balkans and the Mediterranean, but it's also concerned with questions of human rights and inequality, afflicting populations far beyond its borders. In its response to the global problems of today, Greece can draw upon the timeless values of its rich heritage of democracy and humanitarian beliefs. My guest is the Honorable Alexandros Mallias, Ambassador of Greece to the United States. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to Dialogue.
Thank you, George. It's a great honor for me and a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure for me, sir. I think everyone's going to enjoy meeting you. Let me begin with something you've been active in for, oh gosh, maybe a quarter of a century, really, and that's the interest that Greece takes in the Balkans. Now, here in America, the Balkans in the 90s were particularly on everybody's radar because of the violence and the conflict. But bringing progress and stability to that region is still important, and it's a major Greek interest in particular. And I know that Greece has recently authorized I believe, a second 5-year development plan for the region with something in excess of 500 million euros devoted to this. Tell us briefly, Mr. Ambassador, what's that plan about? Why is that important? What's the goal of that plan for Greece and the Balkans?
Well, thank you, George. I said earlier, it's a great privilege for me being here in the Woodrow Wilson Center. You mentioned earlier some fundamental Greek values. And I think there is no better place in this town where the Greek values are meeting the contemporary American values. It's exactly Woodrow Wilson values, which are, I think, of a global relevance. Southeastern Europe and Eastern Mediterranean at large is our neighborhood.
Exactly.
And there is no exit strategy for this neighborhood.
Right, you're there.
We have always been there, and we're always going to stay there. So it's above all, it's the interest of Greece to help shaping the future, the present and the future of this neighborhood based on, essentially, on the lessons learned from the past. Greece has been helped and was a recipient of important funds, including from the United States in the post-World War time with the Marshall Fund, but also later from the European Union. So we understand the need to see our neighborhood stable, prosperous, and with a clear future within the greater European Union family. So our policies have 3 pillars. The first is to act as a catalyst in engaging the countries of the neighborhood to European Union membership process. The second is to assist, to provide the know-how, technical assistance, political support, and economic assistance to the countries of the neighborhood. Third is to engage the European Union to have a more political engagement in the region.
Those 3 pillars are very impressive, Mr. Ambassador. And I'm also struck by the fact that you say Greece, itself a recipient of aid in the post-World War II era, is now a donor of aid because it has taken on that role.
I think I say what is important for any country, any nation, including that Greece, is to well learn the lessons of the past.
That's a wonderful lesson, especially from Greece.
And I think, yes, I think it's to well learn. So we have 2 modes of action. First, direct investment. Greece is the single largest investor in Southeastern Europe. Over $20 billion investment the last 14 years. This investment, direct investment, in a region which is main characteristic is the structure, unemployment or underemployment, has generated 200,000 new jobs. It's important.
Absolutely.
Second is with the plan, the economic cooperation plan, which we call it the Balkans Trust Fund, over 550 million euros, roughly $700 million, in 5 years, providing assistance in order to make the countries of the region able to generate, to attract more direct investment.
Absolutely. Let me build on that, because I know that this is wonderful to begin this way, because economics is fundamental. You yourself are an economist.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you'll also agree, as a diplomat, that politics is equally important and can be problematic. There's an aspect also of the Balkans issues that I wanted to focus on, as well as this one that you helped us with so much. In the political dimension,
yes.
Let me turn to Kosovo as a particular problem
right
now, because that still troubles the Balkans. To put it very briefly, we have ethnic Albanians there who argue for independence, and the Serbian population is, of course, arguing for incorporation. In other words, you still have that kind of political difference there.
Yes.
Are you hopeful about a Kosovo situation that can be a settlement agreeable to all?
We shouldn't repeat the mistakes of the past.
Aha, good.
Second, European Union and United States have to remain fully engaged in the search of a solution for Kosovo, which would generate stability within Kosovo and beyond Kosovo. That means we advocate, George, a solution that will be acceptable or palatable both for Pristina and for Belgrade.
And you've had experience with both capitals.
Yes, yes. And I have been very honored to serve Greece in the Balkans, but also very honored to serve the Balkans, which is our, let's say, common homeland.
Right.
The Balkans is very big when you see your neighbors from your own capital,
Exactly.
but it's a tiny spot in the world sphere where you are far and distant. I think that what matters is to have a Kosovo tomorrow, which will be a democratic one, where each of its citizens, irrespective of its ethnic origin or religious affinities, can circulate freely. And I have in my minds the freedom and not the fear, as they were very well described by Nathan Sharansky in The Case for Democracy. I think this book should be revisited in some parts of the Balkans today. Freedom means that any Serb could feel free in going from northern Mitrovica in the southern part of Mitrovica and the rest of Kosovo, but also that the Albanians, the Kosovo Albanians, could cross the Mitrovica bridge.
I think that's wonderfully stated, Mr. Ambassador. What you're saying is that this freedom would be a guarantee for all parties and would put them all on an equal basis. Yes. And I gather from your personal experience as well as your diplomatic experience, you're optimistic that we can achieve this.
Optimism is needed. Optimism generates enthusiasm. Enthusiasm generates fresh ideas. I always thought that there is never a last chance. There is always a new chance after what we used to call last chance. Martti Ahtisaari, who is a distinguished politician from Finland, produced his report. For many quarters, including the United States, it's considered to be the last chance. Martti Ahtisaari is saying that. Right now there is a deadlock, it's an impasse in the United Nations.
Right, exactly.
Russians do not agree with the process and the content of Ahtisaari plan. The United States are indicating increasingly publicly that they will be ready or willing to recognize Kosovo's independence under international monitoring if no breakthrough. I think that it's important, first, the United States, European Union and Russia sit down once more within the contact group and talk.
I agree with that.
There is nothing more important than talking and engaging.
I absolutely agree with that. International dialogue on issues like this is absolutely fundamental and essential. Let me, you mentioned new developments and new chances for hope in the region and elsewhere in the world as a means of inspiration. Let me turn to one also in the Balkans that I very much want to ask you about, because it may be just this kind of new hope. I'm referring to Bosnia. Bosnia-Herzegovina, and its accession process now that's being open to the European Union. And of course there are some hurdles for Bosnia to overcome. It has to meet certain EU requirements of commitment to democracy, ethnic equality, and economic performance. How important would it be for the Balkans, for Bosnia-Herzegovina, to become a member of the European Union?
George, I worked on that issue when I was running. I had the privilege and did the honor to run the Department of Balkan Affairs in Athens during our chairmanship, our presence in the European Union in 2003. And June 2003, the European Council is a landmark, both for Europe as well as Southeastern Europe, because for the first time since this Council, all Balkan countries are potential candidates. So for the first time, they have a clear European future if they are ready to meet the standards and the criteria.
And if they do, Mr. Ambassador, will that mean, that sounds very promising, that would integrate them into Europe, make them members of the European club, and that would be important to sustain.
I think that, yes, George, that's Greece's role, is to engage them, to explain, look what Greece was 60 years ago. Greece was was totally destroyed after the Second World War and the Nazi occupation. After that, we have an equal, we had the Civil War. And after almost 9 years of occupation and civil war, Greece was destroyed. And it requires political wisdom, right politicians, and a political vision. And sacrifices, George. The political elites should make sacrifices, but also speak the truth. Say to the people that there is a new great idea for the whole Balkans. And this great idea is not to increase your borders in the detriment of your neighbor, it's just to go to Brussels and become part of the European Union.
It strikes me, and I hope this phrase doesn't strike you as too cute or facile or anything, Mr. Ambassador, but as I listen to you, it strikes me that Greece wants to use its history as in the role of being a broker for peace and integration in the region, to bring other parties into this greater understanding.
Well, I am humbled to say that, I want to be humble and say that this should have been the permanent way of operation of the Greece. But I think it would be more important if at a global level other countries were following some of these principles. Can I just make...
Sure.
Go back to the Peloponnesian War, Athens, Sparta. It's not just history, but it's the best possible textbook how to conduct geostrategy, diplomacy, how to treat your allies, how to increase your friends.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was going to say myself that Thucydides still is studied for statecraft. And to understand, and it's what I mean by a Greek ambassador to me represents more than a country. It's also a tradition, a civilization, and the importance of history to everything we do. And Greece also, I think, represents in its modern incarnation the importance of relating to global issues. And let me introduce one now that's particularly, I think, well, I think it's the most important issue of our time, quite frankly. I'm referring to human trafficking, which is nothing less, in my opinion, than modern slavery. Now, I understand that Greece, and let me see if I can cite the specific law, Mr. Ambassador, Article 323 of Law 3064 is related to the Greek position on human trafficking, which targets the demand side, punishes those who are doing it, and has been cited as a model of legislation by many world bodies. What's been the experience of Greece with that particular law?
George, I'll be very frank with you. I contributed to an article just a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, in a Washingtonian newspaper. And Greece is very much engaged, and personally I'm very much engaged. In 1991, Greece has discovered something that none of us had ever planned for. Our borders were open. And instead of heading neighboring with Albania and another country, Bulgaria, member of Warsaw Treaty in Yugoslavia, suddenly northern our borders were countries that were seeking freedom. And freedom is not just to go to vote on elections. Freedom is to go wherever you want. In less than 10 years, Greece's population grew up by 10%. We were 10 million in the 1990s, and now we're 11. 1 million are guest workers, mostly originating from Albania, some from Bulgaria and other countries, and many other. And then we had the phenomenon of human trafficking for the first time in Greece. Our initial reaction was to reinforce the borders. It didn't work. We didn't have the knowledge. We didn't have the appropriate legal framework. And what was more important, we were lacking a systematic campaign to increase the public awareness. So it took some time to Greece to be first educated.
Right.
And then, today, I can argue that our legislation to combat demand,
It's the demand side.
demand side is a model, and most of the articles of the law you just mentioned have been also incorporated in the Councils of Europe Treaty for Human Trafficking, but is also considered to be by the appropriate NGOs as a model.
Is it, and I think we're focusing rightly, Mr. Ambassador, on the need to punish the offenders and to do something about the demand side. But does the Greek policy also extend to the victims, that is to say, aid for them, incorporation into the Greek society?
You cannot treat the victim as an offender. So that was also a new trend. The victim is a victim. It has to be protected. So we have within our legislation, we have concrete measures to protect the victim and tough measures to punish the demand. In terms of the protection of the victims, the last years we have created new shelters, and also the police and all the segments of the administration are mandated to protect the victims. I don't feel that we have reached the perfection, but I think we have done in 10 years. That was it's a 100 meters race and not a marathon race.
That's well said.
So we went too far.
I think this is, I should point out, I think for everyone watching, this is a personal interest of yours. You are a recipient of the Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award. So this whole question of human rights and civil rights is kind of a Mallias family affair in that sense.
It's a heritage of my parents, which I'm very happy and humble thing that have transmitted to my daughters.
Yeah, I know, and one I think is working in Africa on these issues.
Yes, that's right, yes. So with Terre des Hommes, which is a European, very well-known and very distinguished European NGO.
Absolutely. So, we can't talk to an ambassador from Greece without bringing Greece and Turkey into the equation, because as you know, that's been one of the big regional and international issues. So much could be said. But I've heard recently people will have characterized our current era as an era of détente in these relations. To me, one of the most remarkable features of it, and this is the one I specifically want to ask you about, is that Greece has strongly endorsed Turkey's entrance into the European Union. I think this is striking, and I want to ask you why Greece has taken this position.
Well, I think there is no other place in Washington where détente and all the literature on détente, and of course has been so well studied as in Woodrow Wilson Center. I know also that you host here the Long Telegram.
That's right.
George Kennans and scholars and ambassadors who have shaped the term détente. But I don't think that this is a right term to qualify Greek-Turkish relations. There is a change. There is a change, and this change has a bipartisan support in Greece. Yes, we support Turkey's European bid. Yes, we want to see Turkey ultimately becoming a member of the European Union. Yes, it's in our interest to have a different Turkey in our borders, and I think it's very much in Europe's interest. Above all, it's also in Turkey's interest. I will sum up our views on Turkey in very few words. Full implementation of all the conditions and the criteria needed have to lead Turkey to full membership of the European Union, but nothing less, either way.
I think that's very directly stated, very strongly stated. And to go back to your earlier comment, if it's not an era of détente, and I appreciate your distinction that it's not, is it an era of greater dialogue or possibility?
Yes, very much so, sir, very much so. It's an engagement.
Aha.
The tent was a modus vivendi between two different worlds. Now it's an engagement, and I want to hope that this engagement will lead to results.
Right.
Prime Minister of Greece, Karamanlis, was in Istanbul last weekend, and he met Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan. We are working very closely together on several array of issues, including that of energy. Greece is right now the third largest investor in Turkey, after United States, I think, and Netherlands.
I didn't know that.
Or Germany and Netherlands. I know that we're the third.
Right.
So that shows something.
Exactly.
But there are issues where Turkey has to move.
You speak of the economic as well as political dimensions of relations in the region, and one of the biggest, to my mind, symbols of that, symbol and substance really, is the new pipeline.
Yes.
From Burgas to Alexandroupolis, I believe, that is being constructed, which will bring oil from Russian fields to Greek ports. And as I understand it, Mr. Ambassador, in its fullest operation, that's going to be about 50 million tons a year of oil going through this pipeline. What does that represent for Greece? Is that going to make Greece a major hub of energy in the region and the world?
I think what's more important is that it represents for Europe and for the Western markets diversification of routes of supply,
right,
but also guarantee for necessary quantities of crude oil that are needed for our development, for our economic development. I think it's important for Greece. I'll be the last to deny that, but I think it's equally important for Europe and for the rest of the Western markets. Right now, today, we have two pipelines crossing Greece. One pipeline is from Thessaloniki to Okta refinery, which is the capital of the former Yugoslavia Macedonia. It's working, it's there. The other pipeline is the TGI Turkey, Greece, Italy, which will be inaugurated next August by the Prime Ministers of Greece and Turkey. And this will bring natural gas from the area to the Western markets.
Right.
The third is the Burgas Alexandroupolis. The political agreement was signed, and we hope to see that starting the works in the near future.
As you point out, that's going to be...
And there is a fourth one.
A fourth one, okay.
The fourth one was agreed last Sunday, Istanbul, between President Putin and Prime Minister Karamanlis of Greece. This will be a natural gas pipeline, which will bring natural gas, Russian natural gas, through Bulgaria and Greece to European markets.
Right.
So we have the diversification of lanes, and also we're going to see, I hope, concrete positive impact on the end consumer's pocket.
Cheaper?
I'm not sure if it will be cheaper, but it's not going to be expensive.
Okay.
Because the general mood is that we do have enough crude oil, we do have enough natural gas, but at the higher prices.
And distribution has been the problem.
Right now, and refineries. Right now, we do have, according to the experts, let's say we pay more $15 per metric ton because of the huge delays in the straits.
Oh, that's the cost of the delay.
It's one. So if we build more pipelines,
right, that cost comes down.
These tankers could move faster. Will be less tankers. Will not be any. Right now, things will be smooth.
It sounds very promising to me. And I can, as you answer that question, I appreciate your economic training, because I didn't appreciate all the benefits it can impose for the world.
I don't know any political theory where economy and socioeconomic impact is not present as the foundations of the political theory.
I think I'd have to agree with that. And I think you might agree with this also, Mr. Ambassador. I cannot talk to an ambassador from Greece, and it's delightful to talk with you. It's a wonderful conversation, without asking about Greek-U.S. relations. Yes. And let me just preface that by saying there's a long history here of close cooperation, but I think it's fair to say there have been strains over American, well, Iraq, to be quite blunt. And I just wonder what your assessment is of relations between the two countries.
Yes. Today, the relations are their best. It's, I would say it's routine, which is the best part, very friendly, and we have very clear and sincere dialogue on all issues. United States and Greece are strategic partners in different parts of the world. We are partners in the world in combating terrorism. Greece has been one of the countries that has been very successful in eradicating domestic terrorism.
The November 17th.
That's right. Second, on Iraq. That was a difference between the United States and many European allies 4 years ago, in 2003. Our objections, if you allow the term, were related to the need to have legitimacy. A second United Nations resolution. And for Greece, the legitimacy is very important. I don't think that Greece was the only country. Most of the European Union allies were needed a second UN Council resolution. But right now, I think on Iraq, the debate is hotter within Washington rather than outside the Washingtonian belt.
I completely agree with that's my perception as well.
So I think that we understand Greece is very committed in Afghanistan. We have troops in Afghanistan, and we have also, I think we have a stake in the larger area from Near East to the Gulf.
I completely agree, and I completely appreciate this view you've given us of Greece in the region and the world.
Thank you. Thank you very much for hosting that.
And that's our program. We appreciate your comments, and you can reach us at dialogue@wilsoncenter.org. I'm George Liston, CA, and you've been watching Dialogue, a co-production of the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars and MHC Networks. Dialogue's also on the MHC Worldview channel, which is available to public TV stations nationwide. For more information, go to www.mhcworldview.org. Please join us again right here next week, and thank you for watching this week. Mr. Ambassador, I wish all my conversations were like that.